Hello, 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 and happy Sunday. I hope all is well with you. I am super excited to go live today. We're going to be discussing not all trauma is loud, some is quiet and chronic. This live is for the woman who has never got hit but hurt anyway. The woman who didn't grow up in chaos, she grew up in quiet. No screaming, no name calling, no CPS cases or emergency exits. Just a slow, constant hum of being overlooked, of learning early that her feelings were inconvenient, that her needs were too much, that the safest thing that she could do was be good, be quiet, be helpful, be invisible. And the world rewarded her for it. You were called mature, independent, strong, wise beyond your years. But here's the truth, that strength was survival because when no one checks in on you, you learn how to shrink your pain so you don't have to make others uncomfortable. You learned how to show up with a smile even when your soul was starving, how to validate everyone else's emotions while gaslighting your own. You learned how to become easy to love by making yourself easy to ignore. And that, my love, that is trauma. Not loud, not obvious, but chronic and deep wired into your nervous system. So, if you've ever asked yourself, why do I struggle to say what I need? Why do I feel guilty asking for help? Why do I disconnect every time I feel too much? This space is for you. This in this live, we are going to be pulling back the curtains of quiet trauma. We're going to be unpacking how emotional neglect dresses up as high achievement, how disconnection masquerades as independence, how numbness feels like peace, but it's actually a prison. We're going to be exploring what happens when no one taught us how to feel, let alone heal. And more importantly, we're going to walk through what it looks like to come home to yourself gently, slowly, without needing to perform for it. You're not broken. You're not dramatic. You're not making something out of nothing. You were trained to minimize your pain. And now it's time to untrain that response because your softness is not a threat, it's your superpower. If this is your first time joining me live, well, welcome. My name is Letitia. I am the Survival Mode Disruptor. I am a trauma recovery mentor that facilitates disruptive, unapologetic transformations for high achieving women who are ready to exit survival mode and take radical ownership of their lives and their growth. And I love having conversations around the residual impact of trauma. I love having conversations about working through trauma and getting out of survival mode. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, you know that we do not do surface level healing over here. We go deep, we go raw, and we get real uncomfortable in the name of truth, transformation, and disrupting every damn pattern that has kept us stuck. So take a deep breath. You're safe here, and we are just getting started. So, I want to start with what quiet trauma looks like. If you grew up without chaos or crisis, it's easy for you to tell yourself, I had it good. I shouldn't be struggling like this. You didn't experience violence. There were no bruises, no screaming matches, no police reports. So you carry this silent shame, this guilt of feeling broken when you were never really hurt. But here's what I need you to hear with your whole chest. Not all trauma is loud. Some trauma whispers. And it whispers so quietly, it almost convinces you that it's not real. So we have to start redefining trauma. We were taught that trauma is a single event, a car crash, a natural disaster, an assault. But in reality, trauma is what happens inside of you when your body, your emotions, or your spirit doesn't feel safe or seen. Trauma is what happens. Trauma is not just what happened, it is what never got acknowledged, what never got repaired. So when we talk about quiet trauma, we're talking about the absence of safety, not the presence of violence. So you might be questioning, well, what does quiet trauma actually look like, Letitia? Well, it looks like parents who were physically there but emotionally absent. I know that was played a huge part in my story. Being praised for your independence when really you had no choice, having big emotions as a child and then told to stop crying or go to your room, being the easy one, the good one, the one that didn't cause problems, not being asked how you feel ever, being the listener and never the one that gets heard, having no safe adult to help you make sense of your life, so you learn to suppress instead. And the world claps for that, right? They call it resilience. But you know it's hyper independence, chronic self doubt, and emotional exhaustion. And the damage of being unseen? Let's name that wound. Being unseen is a form of abandonment. Being chronically misunderstood is a form of pain, because the nervous system doesn't just need to be protected, it needs to be attuned to. So when your caregivers didn't meet you with empathy, didn't mirror your emotions, didn't help you regulate when you were overwhelmed, your system learned that feelings aren't safe, that your truth doesn't matter, that the only way to stay connected is to stay small. And now, as an adult, you struggle to feel at all. You question your every decision. You say, I'm fine, while your body is screaming. You're either numb or you spiral. Not because you're broken. Again, I say this all the time. It's not because you're broken, it's because your nervous system is still waiting for the attunement that it did not get. So now we want to explore why you've minimized your pain. You're not in denial, you're in comparison. You tell yourself other people had it worse. I wasn't abused. They didn't mean to hurt me. At least I wasn't dot dot dot, right? Like I hear so many of my clients, well, I wasn't raped. I wasn't abused, you know, as if it minimizes the pain that you've experienced. You keep stacking up reasons why your pain doesn't count. But trauma isn't a competition. The moment you learn to silence yourself to stay connected, that was trauma. The moment your needs became too inconvenient for others to handle, that was trauma. The moment you had to shrink, smile, and survive while your soul was grasping for air, that was trauma. So we need to learn how to reclaim our truth over performance. So many women in survival mode became experts at functioning. You're not falling apart, but you're not really here either. You keep showing up, you do the work, you get it done. But joy, presence, peace, They all feel like foreign languages because when you've spent your life bracing for disappointment, you don't just let go and enjoy things. You scan for danger, you doubt good things, you numb because anything that feels real feels like too much. And it's not because you're dramatic. It's because your body remembers what your mind tries to minimize. So, if, as you know, or if this is for your first time joining me, I do love to give reflection prompts. I do love to get you to a point of awareness so that you are able to move yourself forward. Um, my three phases of accident survival mode are awareness, reprogramming, and reinvention. And in these lives, we really focus on the awareness part, right? So I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to sit still with this one. I want you to write it in your journal. I want you to write it in your notes app, whatever you will go back to and ruminate on. And I want you to ask yourself, what pain have I dismissed because it didn't look like someone else's rock bottom? And I want you to write that down. I want you to be honest with yourself. I don't want you to censor yourself. I don't want you to justify it. Your pain is valid, even if it came wrapped up in privilege, even if it looked calm on the outside, even if no one else sees it. You do know. And that is where the healing begins. So, again, the prompt that I want you to reflect on is, what pain have I dismissed because it didn't look like someone else's rock bottom? In As we move along this live, we're going to be digging into the behaviors that you've normalized, the red flags that you often call coping. Because once you see the pattern, you can finally choose something different. I could say awareness is like course correction. You don't have to keep surviving, you get to feel safe. So now we're going to explore when silence becomes survival. So now that we named something that most women never have been given the language for, quiet trauma, here's the part that hits deep. Quiet trauma doesn't just hurt you, it trains you. It teaches your body how to stay safe in a world that didn't know how to hold you. And the way it usually trains you is by teaching you to go quiet. Not because you don't have needs, but because having needs doesn't feel safe. I've often talked about my journey, particularly in romantic relationships that often mirrored the relationship that I had with my father. I learned very quickly to keep quiet. Um, I've spoken about not being able to self advocate, not being able to stand up for myself. And all of that came as a result of what I learned in my childhood. Um, so I want to talk about how emotional neglect teaches you to mute yourself. When a child expresses emotions and no one responds, when she's overwhelmed and no one soothes her, when she asks for help and gets dismissed, her nervous system learns a brutal lesson. Your needs are inconvenient. So instead of asking louder, we learn to ask less. We stop crying. We stop reaching. We stop expecting. Not because we don't feel, but because feelings don't get us anywhere. And that doesn't disappear when we grow up. What it turns into is not knowing what you want, apologizing for needing anything, avoiding conflict at all costs, over explaining instead of just stating, saying yes when your body is screaming no. You didn't become easygoing, you became self silencing. And that then became your survival strategy. So let's understand the nervous system behind the silence. Quiet trauma doesn't trigger explosions, it triggers collapse. Your body learned this isn't dangerous enough to fight. This isn't something I can run from. So I will disappear. And that introduces the freeze and fawn of survival mode. Freeze looks like numbness, procrastination, disconnection, feeling stuck and not knowing why. Fawning looks like people pleasing, over giving, smoothing things over, making yourself small to keep the peace. Both come from the same place. And that place is, if I don't cause waves, I will be safe. So your system learned to to quiet your needs before anyone else could reject them. That's not weakness. That is a brilliant nervous system intelligence. But what keeps you safe is often what causes you your life now. So let's unpack the I'm fine syndrome. This is where high functioning women live. You don't fall apart. You don't need anything. You keep showing up, but you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You smile while you're empty, you perform while you're disconnected, you help everyone else while secretly hoping that someone will finally notice you. I'm fine becomes a reflex. Not because you are, but because you were trained not to say you aren't. Silence becomes your armor, and now it's your cage. And we really don't talk about the truth about silence. So I want to say this gently and clearly. Silence protected you then, but it is imprisoning you now. It kept you safe when you had no power, but you have power now. Every time you swallow your truth, every time you override your body, every time you tell yourself it isn't that bad, you are reenacting that same abandonment. Only now you're the one doing it. And that's where healing begins to hurt because you start realizing I was never invisible. I was trained not to be seen. So let's bring this out of your head and into your body. I want you to sit comfortably if you can, feet on the ground, hand on your chest. And I want you to slowly inhale through the nose and give one long exhale through the mouth. And again, and one more time. I want you to let your shoulders drop. Now, I want you to quietly say to yourself, I am safe right now. Let your body feel that. And now, what do I actually need in this moment? And this question, the answer to this question is not what you should need. It is what your body is asking for. Maybe it's rest. Maybe it's space. Maybe it's reassurance, support, quiet, water, touch, or even boundaries. Whatever comes up, I don't want you to judge it. I want you to name it. That is your truth coming back online after being silenced for so long. As we continue talking, we're going to be talking about what happens when you stop silencing yourself and how to sit with emotions that you're used to running from, because once your body knows how to feel safe, everything changes and you don't have to disappear to survive anymore. So let's talk about healing the invisible wounds. So we've named what's hiding in plain sight. You weren't just quiet, you were silenced. You weren't just fine, you were surviving. And now comes the part where most people skip. Healing. Not just understanding, not just labeling, but actually repairing the trauma fractured. But here's the fresh truth that you need to hear before we go deeper. You don't have to prove your pain to deserve healing. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to prove your pain to deserve healing. So let's get real. When your trauma was invisible to others, when you weren't bruised, battered, or broken in obvious ways, when the harm came through absence instead of present, you learned to minimize it. You told yourself other people had it worse, it wasn't abuse, it was just hard. I'm probably just being dramatic. But I want to stop you right there. Your pain does not need to be catastrophic to be valid. It just needs to be yours. You don't need to earn your right to heal. This is not the trauma Olympics, okay? And even if it were, you've already survived enough. So, let's explore why you minimize your own experience. And I'm going to be honest, this part probably will hurt a little. When nobody validated your pain growing up, you internalized the belief that your pain wasn't real unless someone else acknowledged it. So now you outsource your validation. You wait for someone to agree that it was bad enough before you let yourself feel it. But here's the thing, your nervous system doesn't need a second opinion. If it hurts you, it hurts you. If it shaped you, it shaped you. If it shut you down, rewired your brain, and built your entire identity around safety, that was trauma. And minimizing it won't make it disappear. So, how do you reconnect with your emotions after numbing? Now, I did a whole live about this last year, but I want to dig back into it because it's so important. Let's talk about what happens when you've been numb for decades and you start to feel again. Let's keep it real. It's terrifying because when you spent your life keeping things buried, finally assessing your emotions can feel like opening Pandora's box. But here's what I want you to remember, you don't have to feel everything all at once. You just have to feel something and stay with it. And here's a few tools that can help. One of the things that I do with the reflection prompts that I give you is the opportunity to name it and don't judge it. This is where you say what you're feeling without trying to fix it, getting honest with yourself. Then it's tracking sensations. Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? Is it tight? Is it cold? Is it heavy? Is it prickly? Movement as expression. If you can't name it, move it, shake it, stretch it, stomp it, dance it out. Do whatever you need to do to acknowledge what you're feeling and change how you're feeling. And breath work really works. Inhale, I'm safe. Exhale, I am allowed to feel. These micro moments of connection help rebuild the bridge to your emotional self slowly, safely, and consistently. So, we're going to talk about now is creating safety when you've never felt held. This is the core of healing from quiet trauma because if you've never had someone hold you emotionally, if your pain was met with silence, if you had to figure it out on your own, then your body learned I'm not safe being vulnerable. So healing isn't just about talking, it's about showing your body that this time is different. So it starts with a safe touch. You often see me put my hand to my chest, right? And this is something that I've learned in my own healing. Hand on heart, your face, your arms. It's all about physical reassurance, right? Then you have soothing phases. I'm here now. I've got me. I'm safe. You don't have to go through this alone anymore. Reassure yourself that what you're feeling is real and valid and that you are able to process it. And then environmental checks, getting a cozy blanket or closing doors, softening your light. It all signals to your body that you are not in danger. And over time, your system begins to believe this. And that is when the healing starts to feel less like chaos and more like coming home. So let's go over a prompt that opens the door for deeper exploration. Get out those journals again, get out that note app. And I want you to write down what is the first emotion that I learned was too much to express. Was it anger? Was it grief, joy, fear, disappointment? Write it down. Let it breathe. That emotion has been waiting for your attention, not to overwhelm you, but to reintegrate with you. Because here's the truth, you were never too much. You were just too real for people who were stuck in their own numbness. Listen, this work, it's subtle, but it's also sacred. It's revolutionary for women who have survived invisibly. And we're still going to explore what happens when you finally give yourself permission to take up space, to feel deeply, to stop performing wholeness and start living it. Because healing from quiet trauma, it isn't loud, but it is powerful. But you absolutely have to be ready for it. So, the first step in really anchoring into the healing from quiet trauma is giving yourself the nourishment that you never received. I want to pause right here, right? Because you've done the naming, you've touched the pain, you've opened up space for feeling that used to feel too dangerous to hold. And now it's time for the part that will truly change your life. Giving yourself the nourishment no one ever gave you. Not just self care, not those bubble baths and face masks and massages, but deep soul level attunement. And this is where the art of reparenting comes into place. So let's first redefine what reparenting actually means. It's not about blaming your caregivers. It's about taking radical ownership for giving yourself what was never received. Reparenting is becoming the mother that you needed. It's responding to yourself with kindness instead of criticism, creating structure and safety, not chaos and panic, offering compassion when you've messed up, not punishment. And it starts simply, right? When you get tired, rest. Don't keep pushing. When you are overwhelmed, pause. Don't numb. When you are spiraling, soothe. Don't scold. And I want you to think of it this way. What would you say to the 7-year old version of you going through what you're going through right now? And that's the voice that you lead from now on. So, what real safety, love, and self attunement really looks like? You've heard you had to feel safe in your body, but what does that actually mean? So let's break that down. Safety feels like choosing rest without guilt. And if you've joined my lives, you've heard me say this a lot. A lot of us don't know how to rest. We don't know how to pause without feeling guilt or shame around those things. Safety starts when you can get to a place of choosing rest without guilt. You can when you can say no without spiraling into shame, and you can express sadness without apologizing, when you can be in your own company without distraction. Love feels like honoring your boundaries, speaking kindly to yourself, saying I deserve this and believe in it. Attunement means listening to your needs without minimizing it, checking in with yourselves like you matter, recognizing your emotions as signals, not threats. These aren't just habits, they are healing rituals, and they add up. Every time you're kinder to yourself, every time you give yourself permission to rest, every time you check in with yourself, you are healing a part of you that was honoring quiet trauma. So, what are some daily rituals for self honoring? And I call them rituals, not routines. Routines keep you productive, rituals keep you connected. So if numbing was how you survived, then nourishment is how you rise. And here are some small but powerful daily rituals that keep you grounded in self honoring, right? The first one is the morning anchor. Instead of reaching for your phone, reach for your heart. Hand over chest, one deep breath, and then naming one intention. I'm allowed to start slow, giving yourself permission to do something that you've never done. I'm allowed to rest if it's a Saturday and you're tired. Midday micro check ins. Timer goes off at noon and ask yourself, what do I need right now? Not what needs doing. Checking in on what do I need. And it could be something as simple as I need some water, I'm dehydrated. But that check in will become habits if you're doing it all the time. And then that allows you to really be in tune with what you need from yourself. Your evening emotional inventory before you go sleep. Ask yourself, what did I feel today that I didn't name? And give yourself time to write it down, to speak it, to feel it. And again, this is not about fixing, this is about witnessing, right? Again, going back to those 3 phases of accident survival mode, awareness is first. We can't change what we can't see. So, spending that time in the evenings with that emotional inventory gives you the opportunity to uncover the things that are keeping you stuck. And that awareness is a course correction. That awareness is what allows you to move forward in a healing way rather than what has kept you stuck in your quiet trauma. And then, lastly, is a sacred, soothing practice. Create a moment each day just for comfort. Even if it's a warm drink, a soft song, a short walk, let that moment say, I matter. That is the beginning of self care. And again, it's not about bubble baths. This is about coming back to ourselves, getting true to ourselves, being honest with ourselves. And it starts with that single moment a day where you spend some time drinking a warm drink or singing your favorite song or just going for a walk to clear your mind or process your day. It's important that we learn how to rebuild our identity from wholeness and not survival. We have to be able to call it what it is. You're not rebuilding your life. You're rebuilding yourself. But this time it's not from scraps, it's not from grit, it's not from whatever laugh from what everyone else eats, right? This is when we start pouring from our cup first and giving us what we need first before we dispense that energy to everyone else. You're rebuilding from wholeness. And that means that you're not a project, you're a person. You don't have to be useful to be loved. You're allowed to change radically, tenderly, and boldly, unapologetically, even. This is about unlearning who the world needed you to be and remembering who you needed to be. This is reclaiming yourself. So I want to spend 1 minute doing a visualization that I do with my clients. I want you to meet the inner child version of you. I want you to take a breath. I want you to gently close your eyes if you can, only if it's safe to do so. And I want you to picture her, the little girl version of you, the one who got overlooked, the one who was quieted, the one who learned to perform, to please, to protect herself before she ever got to be herself. I want you to get clear. What is she wearing? How is she holding herself? What is she feeling? I want you to walk towards her. I want you to kneel down to her level and I want you to say, I see you. I'm sorry you had to do it all alone, but I'm here now. You don't have to earn my love. You don't have to prove your pain. You're safe with me. And I want you to hold her hand. And in that moment, let her receive what you were always worthy of. Let this be the moment that you stop abandoning yourself. So, the final prompt for today, and I want you to be honest with yourself, get those journals back out. What is the one nourishing thing I can do today to say that I matter? What is the one nourishing thing I can do today to say that I matter? Say it, do it, become it. Because this is where the cycle ends. Not with noise, not with a breakdown, but with you choosing to stay with yourself. So I just want to remind you that you don't have to bleed to be bruised, and you don't have to explain your pain to deserve healing. Let's take a breath together, because this moment is sacred. You've walked through silence, you've named wounds that have no scars, you've sat with pain that didn't scream but lingered, quiet, heavy, and invisible. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you finally feel seen. That ache you've carried for years, you're not making it up, you're not being dramatic, you're surviving a storm that no one else could see. And sis, I need you to know you don't need to justify your trauma to earn your healing. You're already worthy of softness, of support, of a soft place to land. And that is exactly what we are building in the Survival Mode Exodus membership. So, this membership is not a course, it's not a checklist, it's not a fix yourself in 30 days kind of deal. It's a sacred space built for high functioning, heart heavy women just like you. Women who are done pretending to be fine, done being praised for their pain tolerance, done feeling like healing is only for those who have reached rock bottom. This is where we make room for the kind of healing that starts from the inside out. So we have monthly training rooted in trauma recovery, nervous system regulation, and reclaiming yourself. We have coaching circles where your story is safe and your truth is honored. I introduce somatic practices to reconnect you with your body. The body that you spent years escaping. I give you journal prompts and monthly challenges, because healing happens in between calls. And most of all, it's a community of women who get it. No performance, no perfection, just power. This is for you if you're tired of over explaining your pain to people who don't get it. This is for you if you're done talking but you feel disconnected. This is for you if you're craving real healing that includes your mind, body, and your soul. This is for you if you stopped surviving and finally feel alive. If you want to stop surviving and finally feel alive. And this is for you especially if your trauma was never loud, but it changed everything. I want you to remember that healing isn't about proving, it's about returning to your truth, returning to your voice, returning to your softness, returning to your wholeness. That's what we do together inside of this membership. And we would be honored if you join us. So if you are interested, you can either write freedom in the comments, or you can scan the QR code in on the screen. And I just want to remind you that your soft landing is waiting for you. So I will be back next week exploring more things that can help you get out of survival mode. I take a lot of what I learned through my clients or the interactions that I have with the women in my group, Disrupting Survival Mode, and as well as the women inside of Survival Mode Exodus membership. And I create these trainings to help you move yourself forward. If you have watched this, I would love to know what your biggest takeaway was this week. I want you to really anchor into your own healing. I want you to stop comparing yourself with others. I want you to stand in your truth. And it starts with this awareness. So make sure that you go through the journal prompts that I give you in these trainings. Get honest with yourself, uncover the things that you probably kept hidden from yourself because you've been in performance for so long. And I will be back next week, same time, anywhere between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. GMT time, which is 2 p.m. And 4 p.m. Eastern. I will generally give you a time a couple of hours early through post on any platform that you see me on now. But that is the time that I have allocated for these trainings. And if you have missed some of this training, I encourage you to go back and watch because I did this one because a lot of women that I talk to don't recognize with being traumatized because they don't have big T traumas. And we all have to navigate our trauma in some way. And I hope that these trainings are the start of you really unpacking the healing that is required for you to move forward. So, thank you for joining me, and I will definitely see you next week. And if you have any questions, if you want to take this conversation further, feel free to reach out to me at info@letitiarenefrancis.com. Have a great rest of your Sunday.